Today's guest is Tommy Linstroth. He's the CEO at Green Badger Inc. All right, Tommy, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. I always like an entrepreneurial story. Tell me about your origin story.
Sure. I'm founder of Green Badger, and we are a software platform to streamline and automate green construction compliance. And it's a company that I started after coming out of the industry myself. So I started my career in real estate development. I was the director of sustainability for a developer here in Savannah, Georgia, called Malaver Inc. We did development throughout the Southeast, and this was 20 years ago, which you would not think the Southeast would be a leader in green development at the time, but we had committed that everything we would do would be as sustainable as possible. And so we had chosen LEED certification as our barometer, which again, common today, 20 years ago, not so much. But I was charged with helping everything that we designed, built, developed, and operated to be as sustainable as possible. So really cut my teeth working through a unique portfolio of projects, including the first LEED certified shopping center, the first LEED McDonald's, some of the first LEED affordable housing in Savannah. But took that, moved into consulting to help other folks do it, and really just kept running up against the same challenge. I'm guessing you probably hear this a lot. I was scratching my own itch. I was managing everything, as were all of my peers and everybody else. Very manual process, using spreadsheets and manually reviewing, going to a job site and literally picking up a 5 gallon bucket of paint, on the fifth floor of a project, trying to read the fine print to see what its chemical composition was to know if it was a product that should be used on the job site or not. And so it was really trying to find a way to get out of the spreadsheet hell I was living in. And the challenge, obviously, of construction is it goes on for so long. And if you're tracking things manually, that's just an awful lot of opportunity for error. So really just tried to see what other options were out there to help me manage the projects I was working on, and finding no good alternative, started to map out what could happen if we were starting to use technology to do this. Would I have to go to the job sites, or could they just take pictures from their phone? Would I have to, pick up a bucket of paint, or could they just scan a barcode and it would tell them? So mapped out what it would look like and determined we could manage the entire lead construction process from a computer or a smartphone. And so launched Green Badger, and worked, instead of working on 10 projects a year, I could get involved in 10,000 projects, and have been on that journey ever since.
Wow. Did you have any tech background prior to
I
starting?
did, I did not. I did not. So I worked with a startup group here in Savannah that helped point me in the direction. Once we had sort of a working prototype, got introduced to who is now my CFO, or my CTO. So fortunate to be working with Ben for the last 10 years to really build this from scratch and grow it from he and I working on this little app to now we've got a team and projects all over the US and Canada and a couple around the world. So it's been a pretty exciting adventure to be part of. But yeah, I don't have much of any technical background, and fortunately I was able to find somebody to work with to help navigate that journey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, walk me through with technology, it's always about the first couple of customers or that first group. Were they easy to get? Did you have to kick and scratch? I mean, obviously you're solving your own problem, but walk me through that.
Sure. So a lot of it came down to change management. And in the early days, it was less about, do we do this better than something else? Because they weren't using anything else. So it was less, hey, use my iPhone instead of your Samsung phone. It was, stop using a landline and just use the cell phone. Like come along with it, get rid of the fax machine. So that was the biggest challenge to start. And fortunately, coming from the industry, I had a lot of industry connections. I was a lead fellow, so I had a lot of credibility built up behind me. It wasn't like I was just, some tech group coming to try and solve a construction problem. It's like I really understood the issue. I knew the players. I knew exactly what their challenge was because I had lived it for a decade, right? So I was able to come with some credibility and say, look, we've got a better way to do this. You don't have to use these manual processes. You can have real-time transparency and dashboards. You can collaborate. This was before everybody could just hop onto a Google Doc and all edit the same thing. This was, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So some of that was, it was really just stop using the spreadsheets that you're comfortable with and try this new way of doing it. So that was our biggest challenge, was just breaking that habit of, we've been using a spreadsheet for 20 years. Now you're saying we should use this different approach. But once we got through that first hurdle, and even today, I mean, if somebody sees our software working and in 3 minutes you can be done with what would take you 2 hours for one submittal review, it becomes really, really self-evident that the old way of doing it is broken. And I also just say, I mean, today now all of our customers are using Procore and Autodesk. They're using technology in some form or fashion, which, in 2016 and 17, they weren't doing as much. So I think both we've built credibility. The industry as a whole, from a construction standpoint, has become much broader adopters of technology. Still kicking and screaming a little bit, but it was really that first hump of change management to get through. And what really helped us is that the standards that we build to, like lead certification, they evolve every couple of years. And so it's great because a lot of, hey, you're using a spreadsheet template you built, well, it's actually obsolete now because there's a whole new version that's completely different. So for us, where we really started to get traction was when this newer version of lead came out in the middle of the last decade, because even if they were using spreadsheets, they would have to create new ones and do it from scratch. So it was really a good jumping off point of, hey, if we're going to stop doing it now, it's a really good time, because we'd have to be recreating all this stuff anyway.
Hey, there you go. That makes sense. I mean, because when you have to beat, do nothing is a hard competitor. So if they have to do something, they might as well, you can convince them to do something with you. So that's a great insight.
Yeah, the status quo is tough. It's really tough to shake. And contractors, um, a lot of times it's like, hey, I'd sit in a meeting with them, and it would be, well, we're providing you all this efficiency, and they'd say, I don't care if this guy's got to work 80 hours a week until his eyes bleed. Like, they'll do it. We don't need to save him time. And I think that mentality has changed a little bit, because we've been able to show that, you know what, if they're not spending time doing all this manual stuff, you can reapply those hours to help you get your buildings built on time and on budget, and not chase all this paperwork and all these manual processes. So it's not just a time save. I was reading an article today, I think, on uh, LinkedIn, and it was still talking about the biggest challenge contractors have. There's still a labor shortage, not necessarily just in the subs, but with GCs themselves. And so for them, do you want somebody to spend a quarter of the year or more chasing down paperwork and doing these manual processes, or can you reapply that level of effort to other things in your opportunity? So maybe you're not as short staffed because you can account, and that's just how, obviously technology in general. It's like, let's maximize our efficiencies so that we can address items like labor shortage by just being more efficient and more effective with our time.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to other companies about software and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering how much with your solution, is it just a solution for the company using it, or how much interaction do other companies have to, have to make this work?
A lot of times it is really just housed in the end customer, in the general contractor. But what it does is provide us a lot of transparency to the adjacent party. So what we've
Got
seen is the use case around having the architect and having the owner and having the consultants, they might not be in there adding things and creating reports and doing things, but it gives them that 24/7 level of confidence that the contractor is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So what is often a contentious, hey, update me on this. Are you guys doing what you're saying you're doing?
got it.
Who updated the spreadsheet last? What is new? What's different? To, oh, here's a dashboard. Okay, we're hitting all of our goals. Life is great. And it just gives everybody a level of confidence that they're hitting these levels of compliance, because, frankly, it's not optional, right? The contractors aren't doing it because they're doing it out of good of their heart. This is written into their contracts and their project specifications to deliver. It's an owner requirement, and it's over everybody, and there's consequences of not meeting it. So being able to provide that peace of mind along the way just keeps everybody, happier. We are seeing a broadening use group of bringing the architects in earlier, and they can use our solution to help specify products so that the contractor has a roadmap along the way. And the contractors are now starting to bring in their subs to help generate their lead submittals, and to have them, and especially on some of the broader ESG side of things now, where we're saying, hey, you've got to track and report carbon. It's like, all right, well, everybody needs to record all of their fuel usage. Everybody needs to be pulling in where their products are coming from, when a shipment arrives, what type of vehicle, how far did it travel. And so it is becoming more collaborative, because the regulations and the requirements are just becoming more stringent, where it's not just one person at one company. It's now, oh man, we've got to look at everything going on in this job site, which is 30 different trades and hundreds of individuals that are having impacts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great function, and one that other companies might, look at is, the fact that they're getting value just by seeing the data. Because I think I've always heard that the interaction between the different companies and what they use and what you use, and how that information needs to be processed, is talked about a lot. And no one seems to have a good answer. But for you, just the fact that you're disclosing that information provides value. And also, actually, I guess, speeds up the change management if they see this. Hey, look at that dashboard you've been looking at for the last 2 years. Well, would you be interested in doing that? Like, I guess that sort of back and forth is occurring as well.
It is, and what we're seeing, especially on the broader, not building certification, but some of the carbon and waste, and there's a lot of it. People were guessing at what they should be doing because they hadn't taken the time to really measure and benchmark. So, we talk to people and say, we're going to implement these programs to do this, and then we looked at it, and it's like, okay, well, you're targeting something that's like 3% of the impact. You'd have a much bigger opportunity targeting this other 97%, but you picked a tactic before you even knew what to measure it against. So getting that bigger sample size for these organizations and having that to make educated and informed decisions is really crucial. You don't want to, whatever the old adage is, measure twice, cut once, right? You don't want to start cutting and then go back and measure and find out you've cut it all wrong. So I think that's important. But I think your point about data connectivity is super important too, and that's something we're really working to do a better job on, especially in the second half of this year. Is we need to integrate into the systems, and people don't want to open up 15 different apps, right? If our customers are in Procore, they need to be able to pull our information through Procore or through Autodesk, or if they've got their own internal dashboards, we need to be able to provide them that information into their own dashboard so they don't have to open up 6 or 7 different applications to get that. So I think that's not a unique to construction for sure, but it is a challenge when you have so many different systems of how do you get that data into not separate silos, but actually into a high level view you can use. And certainly that is a high priority on our roadmap to help our customers get the data in a manner that's meaningful to them.
Yeah, but at least you can, who your customers are. You have a pretty good idea what they're using. So creating that roadmap is a lot easier than some of these other things, right? We already have that. Where our most important customers, which are the largest accounts. Like, it sounds like, prioritization is not a problem there.
No, that is true, and it's fortunate for us that it is. We have a very defined audience. It's growing as we're getting more interest from architects and consultants, but certainly our core constituents, we know who they are and we know the systems they use. And fortunately, they're not using 100 different systems; they're using 5 different. So it makes it a lot more manageable for us to say, look, we can get you what you need because we don't have to custom build 100 different solutions to get there. We can really focus on the core technologies that they are using on a day-to-day basis.
For sure. And I'm always curious, from where you started and to now. I mean, for many entrepreneurs, certain things come easy, other things come hard. What's come hard for you?
Oof. Still we're still working on really solidifying that getting to massive scale. I think one of the challenges in general is that being a niche software, we're not, there's not a lead certification requirement on everything. And so, continuing that change management process through our customers with a solution that is purpose built for, a subset of their work is still a hurdle that I think we're facing. But I think we are seeing, green is continuing to be a growing part of the marketplace. We're seeing increasing regulation from California, who now you have to require buy clean California. So you need to start looking at the embodied carbon of materials on every project. Like that is in the Cal Green building code. So literally anything you're doing in California, you've got to start looking at this. You've got to disclose your carbon in California. Boston has similar. So the requirements are not getting easier. They're just continuing to level up at a state and local level, which for us is helping broaden that use case.
Yeah, I mean, are you finding through your own targeting or just the inbound activity, the concentration in and around certain jurisdiction? Obviously, California is one known for that. You mentioned Boston. Are there sort of, if you look at the U.S. or wherever you're looking, is there kind of concentrations of customers?
There are some, we've got, I think we have a project in every state. I'm not 100% sure of that, but you definitely see, concentrations in larger metro areas and some of those. So like California, every single project that the university system does is they have a lead standard. So we've got a ton of university work up and down the coast. We've got, a lot going on in Texas where the city of Austin has requirements and Dallas has requirements. So we see a lot of that, but we're also doing a lot of large scale data centers, and those are going up in, relatively rural areas that are not, in California and Texas, and they're sort of all over the place. And we see it a lot, and there's just a lot of, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of municipalities that have their own building requirements. So fire stations in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Raleigh, North Carolina, you see a lot of it driven from that public sector requirement around there. So definitely we have some requirements. City of Boston requires almost everything to have some type of certification. So we've got a lot in Boston, a lot in New York. But it is not limited to that. It really, you see it pretty broadly across the country.
Yeah. And you're targeting, your sales and marketing strategy. What does that look like?
Sure. So a lot of it is, we love the engineering news record top lists. So ENR magazine, they come out with their list of top 100 green general contractors, which quantifies, it's self-reported, but it's a starting point of, if they're doing $8 billion worth of work a year and 7 billion has a green requirement, they're pretty high on our list to give a ring to. So we really start with the large GCs, either the ENR top 100 green or the ENR top 400. But we also, I mean, almost half of our business is small as SMBs. It is the companies that are building these fire stations in Raleigh and Sioux Falls, and we're never going to find those groups on a list. So it's a little tougher for us to have an outreach strategy to them, just because it is so diverse and there's so many of them scattered. So our outreach focuses on those top 100s and top 400s, just because we can identify them when we know they're doing an awful lot of work. But we do definitely support the SMBs as well, and a lot of that is we help try to get the word out just through educating the industry. So we put out a ton of free resources on all things green construction, because we know as a whole the industry just needs them. And if somebody happens to read that and call us up because they think our software can help, that's certainly uh, icing on top of the cake there.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed a course on there as well, on your website.
Yeah, we created Green Badger Academy for that same thing, because we found that even if you were using our software, you got to have a base level of understanding of lead certification and green construction, right? The software can do a lot of it for you, but if you don't understand just the fundamentals. And so we built that as just a self-paced course that is now, it's free. We used to charge for it, but now we just said, look, it's free, go take it. And it literally walks you through, as a contractor, if you've done it a bunch of times or if you've never done it before, in 2.5 hours you can just really elevate your level of understanding of green construction requirements and what would be expected of you to successfully manage a project. And again, of course, the software will help you do that, but you still need to have a firm understanding of, what the heck, when you get these contract documents and it says you're responsible for collecting environmental product declarations. If you don't know what an environmental product declaration is, it still can be a challenge. So that course is really to help just level up everybody, and again, bring a fundamental level of knowledge to the industry in a self-paced, easily accessible way that doesn't make you sit in a classroom and get berated by an instructor for 8 hours a couple days a week.
I'm assuming at some point you probably did this through Zoom or other methods, like you said, classroom. Like, what have you noticed the difference now you have this self-paced thing versus delivering it anyways? Do you find pros and cons with any approach?
So self-paced I love for a number of reasons, because it's just a lot, right? And it's, there's LEAD itself is an acronym, right? For leadership in energy and environmental design. And once you get into that, there's 500 more acronyms. And when you just drink from the fire hose, and if you say, look, I'm just going to sit here and do a whole day session on this, your ability to retain that is going to be significantly diminished. So we have just found the knowledge retention rate, if you can do it in bite-sized increments. And so, you know, you can, if you can do 15 minutes a day for a week or two, you'll come away with a firm understanding of this. Now, the downside is somebody, and I don't have the stats offhand, but you know, you can start this class and then just never go through with it. So you might sign up with the best of intentions, and if you're sitting in a classroom setting, you know, unless you like sneak out the back door, you're going to be in there and getting this. Versus if it's self-paced, we're all busy, right? You sign up for it and then you start it, and then you're putting out fires, and you might just totally forget, not come back to it. So um, it's great, but it does have a challenge, and certainly you don't have the opportunity to ask questions like you would if it was a, you know, a training with a person. But you know, the price is right, so for that point, you gotta take the cons with the pros there.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but you know, what does the future look like? You talked about, you know, being sort of a niche provider. Are you trying to broaden your scope at some point? I mean, is that part of the scaling program, or like what? How do you see this going over the next 5 or 10?
Sure. Well, we definitely see a continued push into carbon, and I think that's going to start impacting every project. So I think our growth is going to be much broader because it's not going to be just, you know, the subset of projects that have a green certification. So I think that's going to be huge. We're also going to be focusing on the design community too. There's a lot of commitments architects have, the AIA Materials Pledge being one, which says, look, we don't care if your building has a certification goal. You need to specify green products on every project, and now you need to report on that. So we've got a tool we're going to be rolling out. Actually, the AIA convention is the
Mhm.
first week of June, so not sure when this is going to air, but the first week of June we're launching a product derivative from our system to help architects find and identify sustainable low carbon products and let them, you know, track and report it for their AIA materials pledge. So again, that puts us in the game for every single project that design teams are working on. So we think, you know, there's broad in the very near term between design community and carbon. We've got a huge opportunity to get involved in an awful lot more projects. And still, we've really been domestically focused. There's a lot of ESG and green building in Europe that we are on our roadmap to tackle in the next 12 to 18 months. There's, you know, entire cities being built in Saudi Arabia that are using LEED as their standard. So I mean, and in Australia as well. So I mean, we've got a lot of opportunity to scale outside of the US and Canada here as well. So between new product offerings, other rating systems, and international, I think we've got you know, we are just at the tip of the iceberg of what our potential is.
Yeah, very nice. Is there anything that you wanted to share that I haven't asked you yet?
Well, you were kind enough to bring up our resources. We always like to just showcase that again. There's free training on our website at getgreenbadger.com. There's ebooks, webinars, white papers, courses, whatever your learning preference is. You've got a free resource there to really help you understand this. And certainly, we'd welcome the audience to connect with us. We've got a couple really great webinars coming up here this summer. A really important one on the new version of LEED, which is LEED version 5, that just got approved here a month ago. So it's big changes, some big changes coming in that. And so we're going to break it all down for the construction community here at the end of July. So again, that'll all be on the website, and welcome everybody to come join us for that.